Yeah, so what influenced me to start Athletes to Visionaries was the transition out of athletics. So playing something and doing anything for 20 plus years, you've poured a lot of your heart, soul, and energy into one thing. And anytime you do that without the proper, skill sets, resources, strategies, oftentimes your identity can become very, very narrow. And that can be problematic when something leaves your life and you put your identity into one thing. And so when I transitioned out of athletics, I realized that my identity was really in Morgan Jones, the basketball player. And that was fractured, and it was how do I now, pick up the pieces. And so I went through a really low point in life. I was, I had my first sales job where I was making a little bit of money, and that was cool. Um, but, it wasn't enough to pay the bills. I was at home, driving Uber, sleeping on mom and dad's couch, which is not a bad thing, right? But it's when you were staying at five-star hotels and flying private planes where you were going and food catered, right? You were very privileged that the drop off was just very, very significant. And so that kind of set me in figuring out ways to fill that void, right? Like when you lose something and you're not equipped to handle the grief and the loss, you go to external things, right? You go to men, you go to women, you go to alcohol, drugs, right? You go to distractions, things that can just keep you distracted from what you're not actually sitting in. And so I did that for a while and I realized it was very fleeting and empty. And so I would start asking some of my peers that I know transitioned as well. And I was like, hey, like, are you struggling? Do you feel like you know what to do with the fact that you're like no longer playing basketball or have a built-in support system in life? And they're like, no, I'm over here struggling too. Like, I don't know which direction to go. I don't know how to like chart a new path. I'm just out here taking whatever comes. So when I realized that, I started to craft kind of what would that ideal situation look like when someone transitions, and then like, how does this impact the youth girl sports, like all the way at the beginning, and then how do I serve in that capacity? And so, um, really, as I was going through that identity shift as an athlete, I then picked up the identity of a mother, right? So within a year, when I was done playing to when I was about to become a mother was 12 months, 365 days. And so when you think about identities, you think about both of those identities. Those are huge life identities, right? Like your career and then like motherhood. So I knew I had to figure it out. And so I went and really went back to my creator and I asked God, like, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? Help me, teach me about you so I can know more about me. I know I'm here for a purpose, but what is it? And so in doing a lot of that reflective work, he started to reveal that to me. And then I started to act on it.
Cause like I noticed some it cause I remember we talked about this like years ago, like, just how much like the opportunities there's less opportunities for female athletes to get into pro sports than say the male athletes. They have more choices, they have more opportunities. And then like for female athletes, like we had to figure out like, are we willing to go overseas and be away from family, or are we willing to have to take the like the WNBA, but then the WNBA is like just there's only 12 teams and 144 spots. So like, and to see, and it's amazing to see how the athletes to visionaries, like what you have done with everything is amazing to see. Like you speaking to all the different colleges. What's that like to speak at the different colleges?
Yeah, yeah. So, and to finish that question, so athletes, visionaries, it really asks athletes, what is your vision for your life? Who are you beyond the game? And so it's products, programs, events, presentations around that. And so, as I started to create and put together, what does it look like for an athlete to be holistically supported in those questions? And what are the roles that impact the answer to those questions? Is, how it really just started to shape itself. So it's been awesome to be able to see the message received well from those who need it the most. to find the common thread between all of us that we all silently ask ourselves, think, struggle with, battle, are navigating, that, you know, it wasn't really a topic of discussion when I was in college. You just didn't have that. They didn't really know that was an issue, I should say, because a lot of voices were not heard in their post athletics. It was like when you were done, you were done. So I think with, with the movement of like more than an athlete with LeBron, right? The work that I do, athletes speaking out about mental health and struggles and that they go through, I think people have started to really open their eyes, open their ears to, there's more to these young people than just the way that they put the ball in the basket or the way they kick the soccer ball. And if we are not supporting them in that, we are not doing our role and we're not doing our job. So I think that's what has been rewarding to see how minds, narratives, and outcomes can shift based on a unified